Hello, welcome to tonight's presentation on Rotary Youth Exchange. We're coming to you from Muncie, Indiana, and we are celebrating over 55 years of the Rotary Youth Exchange experience throughout the world and here locally as well. My name is Daniel Stallings, and we've got a team of members who are part of both the Muncie Noon Club and Muncie Rotary Sunrise Club. We're excited to share with you about the history of Rotary Youth Exchange globally and locally, and the future of Rotary Youth Exchange, both from an inbound and outbound and a host family experience. So thank you for joining us this evening. We're glad to have you with us. Ben, let's go ahead and advance to the next slide. Rotary Youth Exchange builds peace, one person at a time, and exchange isn't a year in your life, it's a life in a year. And we really do believe that having an exchange experience, particularly a high quality exchange experience, which Rotary is known for, really helps you to develop a path for your future and discover yourself and discover your passions. And we have found that youth who have had this experience listed as one of the highlights of their experience going forward. And I believe at the end of our presentation, we will have an opportunity to share with you some testimonials from some students that have had that exchange. And we will also include in the chat some links for you to continue to learn more about personal stories that that some of our students have been willing to share with us. So thank you. Rotary Youth Exchange has a goal of promoting the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace at the person-to-person level. Rotary International has sent young people around the globe to experience new cultures since 1929. And currently, we typically will have approximately 8,000 students globally sponsored by Rotary clubs in this program, both inbound and outbound from the United States to other countries and other countries to each other's countries. So it's a phenomenal program to be doing 8,000 of these exchanges every year. Again, our students report that it's an outstanding experience and a high quality experience. And because we have volunteers throughout the world, I believe we provide a great quality experience. Generally, we see candidates in the age range of age 15 to 18, so generally high school, who are motivated and able to adapt, obviously, to new environments, because you're going to be learning a lot about yourself and other cultures. And somebody who is flexible and open to those opportunities is going to thrive in this environment. If you're not, then this may not be the opportunity for you. But we think that if you're listening to this conversation today, that you might see yourself as potentially having that opportunity in your future. So the history of Rotary Youth Exchange here in Muncie, Indiana. We have had inbound students live with families throughout Delaware County. We've talked about the Muncie Rotary clubs, but really this is for Delaware County overall. And so we have students who have lived with families throughout the county, in the city, and in Yorktown and Daleville and Delta and other locations as well. We've had students from Delaware County go outbound as well. And again, those students can be from any school within the Delaware County region. And I believe we have 8 or 9 high schools that are eligible to send students outbound, or homeschool families as well. We've had some, just recently, we had a homeschool student go outbound as well. Rotary Youth Exchange enhances students, schools, families, and of course our greater community. And we believe that Rotary Youth Exchange helps to bring the world to Muncie and Muncie to the world and back. We've been participating in this program since the mid-1960s, so over 55 years. And again, I mentioned this is a joint program between our 2 clubs here in the community, Muncie Noon and Muncie Sunrise Rotary. Next. So where have our students come from and where have they gone to? You can see we've got a list of European countries that have participated and been part of the Muncie community. France, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Spain, Croatia, Austria, and Germany. From Asia, Japan, Thailand, Taiwan, Turkey, and India. Central and South America, Brazil, Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, Australia, and we don't have Peru on here, but we now have a Peruvian exchange as well. And I'm sure this isn't the full list, but we have students who have really enjoyed and experienced the world, and the world has come into Muncie as well as a result of this program. Next. So one of the questions that folks say is, how long does this last? Our traditional programs, which that's what we're addressing today, is what we call our long-term exchanges, and those last a full U.S. academic year. Students attend local schools, and we usually will arrange the school arrangement. We will approach a local school district and see if they would be willing to host a student if they're inbound, or again, any student within Delaware County is eligible to participate through our clubs in going outbound. What students can experience in terms of learning the culture and learning the families would be that students are going to live in a home with other families. You're not staying at a residence hall or a hotel or something like that. You're living with families, and we usually like to have the students have more than one experience with that, because as we know, all of our families are unique and different. So typically we have 3 families host for about 3 to 4 months over that 12-month period of time. The U.S. outbound students typically will leave in late July up until Labor Day, and it kind of depends on what country they're going to and the timing of that, and will return by the end of June. And then we gather for a reunion of students in the month of July each year. Inbound students will usually arrive in early August in time for school to begin, and they will go through the academic year here and during our U.S. academic year, because some countries use a different calendar, and they will usually wrap up in late July as well. So they have some time after school ends to maybe explore the United States beyond just the local community. Next. What's the benefit of participating in a Rotary Youth Exchange? And so this is by no means an exhaustive list, but what we believe and what we've been told from our students is Rotary Youth Exchange students have the opportunity to do many of the following, as well as additional benefit outcomes. Develop personal self-confidence, maturity, and lifelong leadership skills. Develop a lifetime of international friendships, develop new language skills, discover another culture or sometimes many cultures, expand your definition of family around the world as well. And I think many students report that they have family in many places around the world when they've had a chance to do that. Many of the folks who are on the panel here tonight have had that experience as well, in terms of either being outbound themselves or their children, or hosting people in their home, and that means that we have family around the world as well. And it makes whenever something's happening globally, we become more engaged in that because we have an invested interest or a vested interest in what's happening there, because we have people we know and care and love for in those locations. I think one of the long-term benefits here is you discover what it means to be a global citizen and ambassador to the world. And through this, you develop a base for some of your future educational exploration and career goals. I think a lot of students through this process have a chance to do some discernment around what they're passionate about, what they are good at, what they'd like to do in the future. I think sometimes there's opportunities that open doors for them through the exchange that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Next. This is very hard to quantify, but a lot of folks say, what's the real value of a Rotary Youth Exchange experience? Well, I kind of talked about some of the, I think, maturity and growth and learning experiences, but I think the other part of that is sometimes we want to quantify this in terms of a hard number value. And this will range, this number will range tremendously, but there was a study done recently where Rotary Youth Exchange is designed as a study abroad experience, almost like a scholarship program that provides room and board and tuition and a stipend for students to be there. And based on one study on an exchange to Berlin for 1 year, that was valued at about $24,000. Obviously, that will change in large cities versus small cities or rural communities. But in reality, what's the value? We believe it's priceless, but there is some real value to that. Sometimes this would be something you might be able to list on a college application or a future job opportunity, and it'll help you set yourself apart from that. You'll be that much more of an interesting candidate for any of those opportunities, and it will open doors for you. And sometimes will set you aside from somebody else who is otherwise very equally competitive, because you will have an edge. You'll have maybe a global understanding, or maybe some language skills that will help you be successful for that future opportunity. Next. What does the exchange family provide? And by the exchange family, I mean whoever the student is going on exchange, what's expected of the family? First of all, exchange students, and the student really needs to take a lot of ownership and leadership on this, but the student and their families must apply for the program, and there are some strict deadlines that have to be met. So making sure that you are somebody who's going to be disciplined about meeting those deadlines, and many of those are driven by not just because we want to have an arbitrary deadline, but either the U.S. State Department or other countries' exchange programs, or their what's the term I'm thinking of here? Embassies will have some requirements in terms of getting visas and other things done. You also need to provide your academic records and your health records, and be sure that your vaccinations are in order. And many countries will define what vaccination requirements are appropriate for their country. You would pay for Rotary Youth Exchange sponsored health insurance and travel. We certainly want to make sure that nothing happens to you while you're abroad. But if something does, we want to make sure that there is appropriate insurance in place to provide care for you. And of course, there's some cost to travel to these destinations. That is on the family. And depending on, again, the destination you're going to, the cost of that may vary quite a bit. We will know when you're getting your tickets, the date that you'll be traveling to your location, but we ask you to leave the return ticket open-ended. And Rotary has a travel agency that we use to assist with all of these 8,000 students to arrange their travel. So when we get closer to that, we'll give you some guidance on that. But those are some expenses. We always ask families to make sure there's a little bit of emergency funds that we'll make sure is available if the student needs that at any point. And there will always be some personal expenses or things that you might want to spend some personal funds on. And that's just depending on what your spending habits are, or mementos, or personal experiences you want to have while you're on exchange. Rotary Youth Exchange has a tradition of these blue blazers, and throughout the year you're going to find that you will really love the fact that you're going to collect all of these Rotary Youth pins and other mementos, and you hang them on your jackets. And so there will be opportunities for youth to do exchanges, and clubs to do exchanges with these pins and their jackets. So it becomes something that many students hang and treasure for many years after their exchanges. Usually, just in terms of good hospitality, we encourage students and families to think about something that reflects your local home or community, and maybe bring a gift that would be either for the club and or for your host families, just a way for them to, you're thanking them for opening their home to you, and all the hospitality that they're extending. So it's often a tradition in many other countries to do that, and we encourage students to do that. The last point I have here is, and this is optional, but in most countries there are usually some landmark opportunities, things that students will want to see, and Rotary will create sponsored travel experiences that might happen during a break or the summer break or some time of the year that's appropriate to visit those sites. And those are usually at additional cost to the families, but they're optional as well. So there's no expectation that you go on those trips, but Rotary historically has provided some options to do that. Students who are coming into the United States often have an opportunity to go to the West Coast or to the East Coast, for example, and generally not do both of those, but they get to choose one of those two. And again, sometimes you might travel with family and you might have some of your own personal expenses involved with that as well. Next. Some of you might be interested in serving as a host family, and so we wanted to talk about what that would look like as well. So Rotary Youth Exchange host families, the program could not exist without the willingness of individuals and families to open their homes to students from across the globe. And a lot of folks say, well, I'm not sure I'm a good host family. I'm not sure I'm what you're looking for. I'm not sure. And in reality, there's a lot more successful and rewarding experiences than you might imagine to be a host family. So we don't define what a family looks like from that standpoint. So it's not necessary for you to be a Rotarian first and foremost. You can be anybody in the community. You can be single or married. You can have a domestic partner. You can have children in the home or not. So it really doesn't matter. It's your willingness to open your home. Host families, they might be empty nesters. They could be single parents. They might have younger or older children, and they might be either in a homeschool environment, they might be in a private school, they might be in a public school. Now, we'll arrange the school environment, but your kids could be in any one of those arrangements. It could be the same school that our inbound students are attending or not. It's, again, just a willingness to open up the homes. One of the things that often is asked is, what are the specific arrangements? And I'm going to address one now, and then we'll continue with some more other details on the next slide. But exchange students are expected to have a room in the home that they would call their own, but they're not required to have a room of their own as a single residency. They certainly could share a room with the same gender youth as well. So if you've got a couple kids in the house and one of them would be an appropriate placement for an exchange student, we can certainly allow that to happen as well. So next. Again, what else it would be provided by the host family? We're arranging the school placement, and the students will attend high school while they're here and have all of the expectations and requirements of homework and opportunities to play on a sports team or a band or whatever their interests and skill sets allow. So the host families, facilitating their exchange, because it is an academic and a cultural exchange. Host families, again, will provide a room and board, so meals, and family support. Any family travel or family events. Remember, this person is not a stranger in home. It's not a boarder in your home. They're a new member of your family. And so we would ask you to invite them and treat them and engage them like you would any other family member. In fact, if your family has expectations of your kids doing chores, it's totally appropriate to ask these folks to do their chores. So if somebody's responsible for emptying the dishwasher on a rotating basis or cleaning the bathrooms, whatever is a norm in your house and your family and the expectations you would have of anybody else in the family. We would also ask that family members, provide local transportation, and that might be to school or athletics or other events. As a Rotary team, sometimes if your kids are involved in something else, or if you don't have kids at that time and there's a conflict for you for work or other commitments, the Rotary Youth Exchange team, we will often step in and try and help with those transportation needs. But again, this is part of your family, and we're in a support role for that to happen. We talked about the fact that students will usually stay with a family for maybe 2 to 3 families, usually 3 families over the year. So you can think about opening up your home for 3.5 to 4 months usually, and roughly if they're arriving in August, that would be to about Thanksgiving, right about this time of year. We're recording this in the week before Thanksgiving in 2020, and it wouldn't necessarily have to happen firmly on that date, but roughly around that date would be a time to transition. And then between Thanksgiving and sort of mid-spring, March, maybe spring break for many schools is sometimes a good natural time to make a break. And then from March until July, so it's sort of through the students' usually senior graduation year if they're doing a senior year. And then if your family really enjoys doing some things in the summer, it's a great time for you to involve them at that point. So as a family, you get to choose what works best in your family's cycle as well. So, all right, next. So, to summarize a few things, what is needed to be a host family? First and foremost is the desire to share your family traditions and your culture. We have American culture on here, but whatever your family culture is and traditions are. We would ask you to have the curiosity to learn about another person and their country's culture and traditions. We'd ask you to maintain, certainly an environment that allows for the proper care, health, safety, and well-being of the young person in your care, and make sure that they're a part of that. We don't have that on this slide, but if your family celebrates a faith tradition, we would certainly let you know that you are welcome to invite those exchange students to be a part of that. We certainly don't expect them to necessarily adhere to all of maybe a host family's religious traditions, for example, but we would encourage them to explore that, just to learn about that from a cultural experience. They may have some of their own faith traditions, and so we would also ask that a family support them in honoring and celebrating their own faith tradition if it's different than the host family. But again, it's a discovery opportunity. It's very exciting to see that happen. The process then would be to fill out a standard family host application form, and at the end we'll give you a link to the slide where you can find that. And through that process, there's a number of approvals that happen. You'll be approved at the Rotary Club, and the State Department also does its own screening and background checks. And so every member of the family who's age 18 and over would complete a criminal background check as well. And there's some other trainings. And again, we take our role and responsibility to host this program very seriously. And if you have a son or daughter that's going abroad, you would want to make sure that whoever they're interacting with is well vetted. We take that responsibility seriously as well if we're working with host families for students coming in, because we have a duty to those children and their families in their home country, that we're going to be good stewards of that. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Daniel Stallings. My personal email is down below, daniel.stallings@gmail.com. And again, we'll give you some more information towards the end here. Next. I did want to point out that, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we have 2 Rotary clubs here in Muncie, and this is a joint commitment. And our commitment is, again, to help find host families for these students. And again, our goal is 3 per year for approximately 3.5 to 4 months each. Relationships, we invite our students and we expect our students to participate by attending our club meetings once a month. And so they would be attending that so that they can broaden their Rotary support system and impact the clubs and learn about our culture. Sometimes we'll be able to arrange other lunches or job shadowing or invitations to go to cultural events when we return to those things, whether it's theater or music or dance or the Indy 500 or whatever that might be in Indiana. Sometimes there are opportunities that either you as a family or other club members might have special travel opportunities that somebody might invite them to participate in. Again, we're trying to create enrichment opportunities for these students. And we know that when our students go abroad, those same opportunities are made available to them as well. Our Rotary clubs make a financial commitment in their budgets every year to help defray the cost of that. And it helps to reduce the cost for families to participate in the program. So this is more accessible to students going outbound as well, and hosting students on the inbound. Next. Again, I mentioned we're recording this November of 2020, so this is the year that we'll all remember as COVID-19. So this year, out of utmost safety, Rotary International suspended for the first time in many, many decades Rotary Youth Exchange. However, we do plan and we expect that we'll see a return of exchanges in the 2021-22 academic year. And we hope that many of you listening will be either interested in going outbound or maybe being a family that would like to host inbound students. Our inbound or outbound opportunities, currently these may change, of course, through this process, but we're wanting to encourage students to explore this right away. This is mid-November because we'll have a December deadline for outbound for consideration. We're waiting on some details as to the exact date on that, but reach out very quickly if there's something you'd like to explore further and know more about. Inbound opportunities, we expect to be receiving students from around the world back here in the United States and throughout our central states and Muncie community. And we'll learn more about who our inbound students are in the spring. And then we always, as I mentioned, could not do this program without host family involvement. And so if you would like to do that, we're asking for host families to identify themselves so we can begin the screening process no later than February, so that we can match up families and inbound students as well. Many countries have a tradition that if your student's going outbound, then there's an expectation that you've got an extra bed in your room in your home. And so many countries require that if you're sending one out, you're going to host one back in. That's not necessarily our expectation here, but we've had families do that, and I think that they've learned that it's a really interesting way to appreciate what you're going through and what your kid's going through, because you're hosting a kid at the same time, and you get a sense of what their family's going through. We have a parent with us who just went through that this last year, right, Jennifer Dale?
Yes, last year,
Gracie
Gracie went
have
to
you
Peru,
talk a
and
little
we
bit
had,
about that experience in a minute. So,
okay.
All right. Next slide. And this is our last formal slide before we get to some comments here. But this is our Rotary Youth team, and it's your support team to do this, and we're available to ask for you to ask us any questions. There's a lot of roles and titles here, but I'm going to let you know that Dan Laird, who's a faculty member and researcher at Purdue University, serves for the entire district as our Rotary Youth Exchange Chair for the district. And Rotary is organized by these districts by number, and we're in District 6560. And then we have individuals at the district level who specialize in arranging and answering questions and working through the process for a full year of an exchange for students who are outbound. And we're lucky to have our district outbound coordinator, and Joanne McKinney. And Joanne, if you would wave over here. Joanne happens to be here in Muncie and is part of one of our clubs, but she has a responsibility at the district level. So if you're interested in going, if we have students coming inbound, Joanne will do the inbound. If I misspoke earlier, I apologize, but it's on the slide. Inbound coordinator, and there's another colleague of hers, Renee Goff, who is our outbound coordinator. So anybody who's interested in going outbound, reach out to me and we'll connect you to Renee Goff going forward. I serve as a Rotary Youth Exchange Officer for our two clubs. And then Jennifer Johnson. Jennifer, if you can say hi over here, wave. Jennifer is a member of our one of our Rotary clubs as well, and she's our Rotary Youth Exchange Counselor, which is somebody that the students could go to if they're having some challenges or need some support, either school or family or host family or things like that. So we have lots of support. And then some other folks that you'll meet through this process would be Peg Garofolo, who served previously as a Rotary Youth Exchange Officer and still is a passion for this. And she and her family have been very involved and hosted students for many years, as many folks on this slide have. Bev Wilson is a member of our Sunrise Club and is a member. Ben Polk, who is managing our technology tonight, is a member, as well as Jennifer Dale serves as our host parent representative. So we appreciate all of that. My contact information is down below. Again, daniel.stallings@gmail.com, and my mobile phone number is down below as well, and you're welcome to email me, call, or text me. And then we have a link to the it's the Rotary Youth Exchange for Central States, which is our multi-district region, and that would be where you would find information on applications for outbound or host family information as well. And so we will direct you to the csrye.org site as well. With that, and with the time we have remaining, I want to just ask a couple folks to make some remarks so that folks listening in can learn a little bit about the exchange experience. And Jennifer, I'm probably turn to you first. I just alluded to the fact that you have been both a host mom and a mom of an outbound student, and you did it the same year.
Yeah.
And really, your family has hosted students for many years from many different countries. So thank you for your support of youth exchange internationally and Rotary in particular. So Jennifer, you can tell us a little bit about your experience it was just last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, just this last year. Our daughter, Gracie, she was outbound. She went to Peru. And then at the same time, we hosted a student, Rodrigo, from Brazil. So that was an interesting experience because we had both Gracie overseas and then we had somebody there. But over the course of the years, we've been very fortunate to have hosted at least 4 students over the past 12 years. And it's just a wonderful experience. And I would think that anybody who's thinking about it, we've just learned so much about other countries and really gained, like, it feels like 4 children that now live across the world. So
Right.
I think sometimes people have concerns about hosting. One thing I would say is that you get a lot of support from the Rotary, and this team that is here that's assembled, they have all the answers. They have a lot of answers and they provide the support, and they always are there for the student and the family.
Thank you, appreciate it. And you had a unique experience this last year because while you were both hosting and had an outbound student, it was in spring of 2020 that they were finishing up, and life kind of changed for the world, didn't it?
Yeah, so COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I think it was about the time I actually had Rodrigo. We were vacationing in Florida. And
Right.
all of a sudden we started hearing things about COVID. And about that same time, Gracie called me and said that Peru had put everybody in quarantine. They were one of the very first countries to lock
Right.
down. So she was quarantined. So we got back from Florida. Eventually, after a couple of months, things weren't getting better. And it was time to get Gracie out of Peru. But again, I will say that we had great support system. Rotary was very helpful. And then also the US Embassy was very helpful in getting her out and arranged military flights and chartered a flight back so that she could get back to the United States.
Right. And Rodrigo was from Brazil and was with you, and he really was enjoying his experience, right? And didn't have a need or desire to go back to Brazil right away. He knew he was going to, and he didn't charter a flight to get out of here. He stayed to the very end, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah. Well, and then and he also had more freedom probably here because they were in a lot more strict quarantine
Right.
in Brazil. So he
Right.
recognized that and thought, I think I'll stay where there's a little bit more freedom.
Right. Very good. Well, we appreciate the Dale family and your commitment to all of this experience. So, Joanne, we have a couple minutes. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about the McKinney family's involvement with being a host family over the years of many exchange students?
Sure thing. We've actually had an opportunity to host 7 or 8 of them. We've had students from Mexico, from Spain, from Turkey, from Germany, from Austria, from Taiwan, and from Belgium. So each experience has been unique, lasting anywhere from a month to 6 or 7 months in some of the cases. So it just depended on where the need was. But we now have kids all over the world. So every time something happens in Spain, I want to know about it. Or if something happens in Turkey, I have to text or email or get on WhatsApp. We had a young man from France who stayed with our neighbors, and I took care of the placement. And I had a great opportunity to meet up with him in London in 2015. He was doing an internship. And my neighbors told me, hey, while you're going to London, you might want to look him up. And now with the advent, the inventions rather of WhatsApp and smartphones and FaceTime, it really has made it a lot easier to stay in touch with our kids from all over the world. So we're planning a trip. We were going to go this summer to Europe and visit a couple of them, but we're hoping we'll get to hit repeat and go next summer and catch up with some of our kids. So they're a part of our family. Our kids have fond memories. We're from a small town here, Daleville, Indiana, and we felt it was very important to bring some diversity to our household and to show our kids there was a great big world out there. And Rotary Youth Exchange allowed us to do that.
Excellent. And thank you to the McKinney family as well. Jennifer, I don't know if you want to have something you want to share, but I'll just throw in while you're thinking about that. Our family had a chance to host what we would call our third daughter from France a few years ago. And as Joanne indicated, we had a chance to do a family trip last summer to Europe. And on the way, we met up with our host daughter, our exchange daughter, who lived in northern France. We were in southern France. We met up in Paris and we spent a wonderful few days together. And then when my wife and I and our youngest daughter came home, the older daughter stayed, and she went and stayed with her family, with her host extended family in Europe. And they had a wonderful extra few days. And I think they're always going to be very close with one another. We appreciate that very much. So Jennifer Johnson, I know you've had some personal experiences with exchange as well.
Yes. I said recently, so I did an exchange in college with Ball State University to Vienna, Austria. And I didn't know about Rotary Youth Exchange. And had I known, I think I would have done an exchange earlier. And I want to comment, I don't know how Gracie Dale feels, but one of the things that came out of that is I have a whole group of friends from all over the country, from across the pond that, you know, decades later, we still keep in touch and exchange Christmas cards and all of that. And so it's that friendship also from that experience.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I know Ben is going to put up a few things for us here, but Ben, I don't know if it's possible for us to go to that website for a moment, and we'll just feature it for a moment and then show our exchange student video. What you're seeing now is the Central States Rotary Youth Exchange.org, CSRYE.org. And you'll see a link along that top white section that says how to participate. And if you click on how to participate, really there's two items I'd like to point out. One is become an exchange student right below there, and that would tell you how to apply and look at that. And two more down would be hosting a student. So if you are somebody who wants to be a host family, the information's there, the applications, and it's a wonderful automated process that walks you through that. But again, we'd want to make sure we're connecting with anybody who's interested in either outbound and or being a host family. But this is where you can go to learn a little bit more, CSRYE.org. And it's got some wonderful information in here as well. In conclusion, we want to thank you all for your interest in learning about Rotary Youth Exchange, and particularly maybe an opportunity to be a youth going outbound and discovering the world, or being a family that would like to maybe put your toe into bringing the world into your home for a period of time and serving as a host family for maybe 3 or 4 months. We appreciate your interest. We're a team that's ready to answer any questions you might have. And I'll just remind you that if you're interested in going outbound, we'd love to hear from you in the next few weeks so that we can get you on the path to applying by December. And if you're a host family, obviously that takes some conversations among the family as well. But we'd like to have some family commitments of hosting next year's students who are inbound by sometime in February of 2021 for the August to July 21-22 academic year. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you to my team for all that you do. And we look forward to many exciting exchange opportunities and stories. So, and change lives as well. Have a great evening.